Advice for Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Masters Number 2. 12 Tips for Closing Strong, courtesy of Kingsmage, Sir Agler Gilden. Please like and subscribe for more content from Animancy Press. You can join the Animancy Press Discord community to meet and play with new and experienced players, Dungeon Masters, and Apprentice Dungeon Masters on the Animancy Press Discord server using the link in the description or in the top pinned comment below. Apprentice Dungeon Masters can also shadow games in progress before deciding to pick them up and run them. Now back to 12 tips for closing strong with Kingsmage, Sir Agler Gilden.
Now on to 12 tips for closing strong, though before we begin, it would be useful to remind new Dungeon Masters that not everything on this list is mandatory to run a successful game, though the more effort you put in, the more rewarding your games will be for you and your players. Now let's begin. Number 1. Always remember to thank your players and remind yourself to fulfill any commitments that you made during the game. Giving yourself a script and practicing it can help. Remember to always speak with optimism and enthusiasm, point out and recollect any exceptional role-playing or other event that occurred as a result of play, such as that natural 20 that your player rolled with the narrative result of cutting the big bad evil guy in half. If you do this, even the newest player will begin to shine. Here's an example of what you might say on a Discord game. Thanks for playing, I hope you guys had fun, I know that I did, and it was a pleasure gaming with you. Good idea with setting a trap rogue player. Awesome nat 20 barbarian. Wizard, your spellcasting was on point, that sleep spell really improved your team's relative action economy. Don't forget I accept constructive feedback, please direct message me and let me know how I'm doing as a Dungeon Master, as I'm always looking for ways to improve. Number 2. Don't be afraid to let your players know that you're taking notes to add to your closing remarks and session recaps. They look forward to your praise, and this will be a good time for some player interactions. It helps if you establish during session 0 or at the beginning of your game that you will be creating these moments for your players, so they are ready to take advantage of the time in advance and perhaps even give you more opportunities to award them accolades. Number 3. Don't worry about improvising a fancy or perfectly worded closing statement. You can always prepare a written session recap and at everyone after the session, or send it to them via email, especially if you're pressed for time or the session is running over time. This is a good opportunity to remind you that keeping in touch and knowing everyone's contact information is up to date is just as important as running the adventure. Writing a session recap after every session can be useful as you plan for your next session, as in order to know where you are going, you must first know where you have been. Number 4. Establish in advance that you'll be awarding experience and level awards in your session recap. This not only improves the player's recollection of the session for the next one by giving them a reminder, but gives you an opportunity to drop subtle hot and cold hints, as well as to refine the player's experience with things that you may not have remembered during play. You may find that your adventure gets more interesting and nuanced the more that you think about it, and this process will likely result in a refined player experience while maximizing the experience that you get as a Dungeon Master. Number 5. Review your notes and session recaps to identify insights that will allow you to prepare for the next session. Perhaps your players show signs that they are more interested in the forest to the north than the spooky castle or keep to the east that you had prepared, or are more interested in completing puzzles than getting the rewards for them, which could be the player not being aware of what to expect on that subject. Talk to your players between sessions and give them advice and hints for the next session. Number 6. Encourage punctual behavior with positive reinforcement. Always remember to ask players to inform you in advance of any changes in their schedule which might affect their attendance at the next game. Thank players for being on time, dealing swiftly with extenuating circumstances which may have otherwise delayed their arrival, and express empathy for events which might have delayed anyone who was late. This will keep you in the best position possible to quietly enforce strong table etiquette. Number 7. Award Dungeon Master Inspiration, which is a reroll of any roll where a d20 or 20-sided die is required during the next game. Nothing brings a player back with enthusiasm like having a way to wrest success from the clutches of defeat, such as by improving the success of their character or the failure of their enemies. Doing this will ensure that players work harder to impress the table and gain these rewards, thus lightening your load as a dungeon master. Number 8. Establish a time after the session close to discuss comments, reflections, and inspirations which may have been off-topic to the game at hand. This will not only help to keep the players on topic and engaged with your adventure, as well as reduce interruptions and distractions. In fact, you may find that this post-session banter becomes a rewarding and fun-filled element of the game that keeps players excited from beginning to end, much like the tailgate party at the end of a sporting event. It is, after all, making and growing friendships which is as much a goal and reward of role-playing games as our treasure, milestones, and experience points. Number 9. Establish plot point teasers for each location, event, social interaction, and major combat in your adventure, then use them at the end of your closing session statement or recap to build excitement for the next game session. Using note cards labeled with the adventure heading will help you keep track of these. Your teasers should be mysterious and not give the plot away. Something like, "And the ruins of a dark and uncharted castle await you in the distance, as when next we meet, the exploration of the yet-to-be-discovered ruins will begin." Number 10. In the event that an event in the game is more difficult than the players anticipated, or the bad guy scored 3 critical hits on the party at the end of the session, it may be important to leave them with words of hope to let them know there is still a chance for their survival and success. Remind the players what they are up against and ask them to formulate or collectively agree on a change of plans for the session ahead. It's important to note here that breaking in the middle of combat is optional. Some dungeon masters like it, some don't. Depending on your preference, this may be a moot point. Number 11. Ask your players if there was anything in particular which they really enjoyed. This will allow you to gauge their responses and illuminate the strengths of your adventure or campaign. It is also a good idea to ask them where they think the plot is going or about any other events or ideas they may be anticipating or entertaining. This will allow you to adapt your adventure to suit the needs and desires of your table and will allow players to feel more fulfilled. Don't let it get you down if your players don't follow along with the adventure. Everyone thinks differently, and this is a shared fantasy world after all. Number 12. Add your closing remarks session recaps to the end of your opening for your next session to help maintain the context of the adventure. If you've prepared for the game well enough in advance, this will reduce your required prep time and keep players connected to the game despite everything that goes on in the player's life between sessions. Remember, Dungeons & Dragons is as much a social outlet and escape as a short vacation or any other recreational activity, such as seeing a movie, attending a musical event, or a sports game. If half or more of the players can't make a session, it is a good idea to either have a backup game planned or another activity which can keep your remaining players forming regular sessions in spite of absences and ensure that the game will continue, even if new players need to be recruited. As we conclude this bit of advice on closing strong, I'd like to remind your majesty that your loyal subject by the name of Animancy Press most humbly requests that you like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to this channel. Further, if you are having fun with Dungeons & Dragons or making friendships because of Animancy Press, your financial support through Patreon, Ko-fi, or PayPal using the top pinned comment in the comments section, or purchasing an Animancy Press title on DM's Guild using the links provided in the description and comments section below would be greatly appreciated and keep Animancy Press in your gaming and content creation services.